Good morning, everyone. I see some familiar faces. I think I met a couple of you last year. I'm the new extension entomologist, still claim I'm new. I've been here a year and 2 months. My name is Ada Szczepanec. My last name is complicated, so we can just stick to Ada, that will work. I've had a lot of fun last year learning a lot about field crops, entomology in South Dakota. And I'm looking forward to more. And it's always so much fun to be here at Dakota Lakes because it's such a beautiful place and wonderful production here too, and sustainable way to manage insects and field crops. So wheat is actually, I have to say, one of my favorite crops to work on in South Dakota. I have, I'm 5 feet tall, so anything that's over 5 feet tall is a little intimidating. So I've had a lot of fun in wheat fields. What I have for you today is just a little update about the major insects that I think we need to pay attention to in wheat, and then some specific tidbits about them that are particular to this year. So the first one, and Emmanuel alluded to that one, are aphids. So we have a couple aphids that we need to pay attention to in South Dakota. It's mainly green bug. It's the bird cherry oat aphid. I always get that one mixed up. And English grain. And so far, every field I've been to has only had green bugs. And I had some news from Minnesota. They're starting to see English grain, but they haven't made it out here yet. So the aphids don't overwinter. The aphids that we worry about here don't overwinter in South Dakota. They're broad with southern winds, and I am a little directionally challenged too, Emmanuel. I think all South Dakotans sort of walk into a place and know which is north and west and all that stuff. So I'm still learning that, and I'm thankful that the state is on the grid. It's really easy to find my way around here. So aphids, there's a couple to worry about, and the point I like to make, and Dakota Lakes is such a cool place to make that point. I hear a lot of stories about people walking through the fields about to spray fungicides or herbicides, and why not just add that insecticide in the mix? It's just $2 an acre to mix it up there and spray, whether there's aphids there or not, whatever is in there. And that's a cheap solution for, I don't know if it's a solution even, but it's a cheap way to go for now. There's tons of issues with using pesticides before they are actually necessary. So when do you have to worry about aphids? You walk through the field, you pick up a plant, and there's 2 or 3 green bugs on the leaf feeding. Is that a time to start worrying? Well, it's not. It actually takes something like 25 of these green bugs about this stage of wheat to start worrying about. And I have some handouts back in the shed with specific numbers of different aphids that constitute thresholds for spraying, as well as sort of a not as precise but an easier shortcut. You walk through, pick up some plants, and 85% of them have 12 or more aphids. That's maybe a good time to go spray. But these sort of knee-jerk reactions to protect ourselves from the invisible enemies that we can't really see, that's a very human nature, and a lot of people go with that just because it makes us feel safer, but it's not the way to go. So what we're doing when we're spraying before we reach threshold, you're killing tons of natural enemies that are all over these plants. So I've already seen some lacewings flying around. There's probably some lady beetles and other little natural enemies that are killing aphids. So they're much better at finding these aphids than we would ever be with our sprayer. So you always leave some things alive after spraying. And when we go in and spray too much, that speeds up the development of resistance. And we might get fooled by the number of different pesticides that are registered for each crop and for each pest, but they really belong to just a handful of groups. You're really using pyrethroids, we're using organophosphates, maybe carbamates, some neonicotinoids. So it's really a couple of different 3-4 different classes of pesticides. They're incredibly similar, and when we go in and overuse them, we're sort of setting ourselves up for problems down the road, and those problems are already evident with weeds. So it's going to happen. So another thing with aphids I wanted to mention briefly are seed treatments. So insecticide seed treatments for spring wheat and for winter wheat. So these seed treatments are very low dose, so they're present in the plant for a very short time. So if you're worried, if you're planting winter wheat sort of early, you're a little worried about aphids. You know, they have high incidence of transmitting these viruses that Emmanuel was talking about. Maybe insecticide seed treatments are the way to go in that case. Well, what about spring wheat though? And I know that these insecticide seed treatments are really driving up the prices of seed. Does it make sense to apply seed treatments to spring wheat if you're worried about aphids, you know, down the road? And so Emmanuel and I were, as well as Carl Glover, we're going to start a couple of years of research to actually look at that. Does it make sense? Does it really protect you? Is it economically sound, both in present and absence of these aphids in spring wheat? Because by the time aphids come, you know, it's probably a month down the road, and who knows if these seed treatments are still protecting you or not. So we'll keep you posted about how that goes and what we find there. A couple different pests that we pay attention to in wheat are cutworms. These are, you know, easy to spot. You walk through the field and you see stand issues, patches, and if the wheat is coming up real easy and it's cut, you know, you need to dig around the soil a little bit, see if there's any cutworms around. But I haven't had any reports of cutworms this year. Have you seen any in your fields? No. I haven't heard much about those this year. And another one are grasshoppers, and I think we're well into grasshopper country here, right? So I have some good news. USDA APHIS every year comes up with this map that sort of predicts what's the risk in different areas for severe grasshopper infestations. And I think last year a lot of South Dakota was in the severe risk, severe category, and this year we're much better off. There's just a couple of pockets in the northwest corner, far south, really far south, just a couple of places that are in the moderate risk, not even severe. So grasshoppers potentially not a big deal for us this year, which is a really good thing. Another one I wanted to mention is the wheat stem sawfly. We had a couple issues last year with that, and it's a big pest in Montana, and North Dakota is seeing that too. So it's thought to be one of the main emerging pests in wheat in South Dakota too. And actually, after we're done here, I'm heading up to Bison and Ralphville. We have a couple trials with different spring and winter wheat varieties that have resistance against this pest, and see how they hold up. So we were doing that in those areas because they had infestations last year, so those varieties are planted out there. We'll see how they hold up. Wheat stem sawfly is not an easy pest. It's not easy to control, and it's not easy to predict what sort of damage and effect it's going to have on yield, because it's highly variable. So there's only one generation, and the adults are flying right now. And stem sawflies are actually, they're not flies, they're wasps. So the adults are flying now, and she's laying eggs, and they're going to bore into the stem of the wheat. That's why it's hard to control, because you can't just go out and spray, because it's right there hiding in the stem. So I'm going to come back later and split the stems and see if there's larvae in these different varieties, and how the yield is affected, and how it all sort of adds up for us in those areas. So we're going to keep you posted on that too, and see if it really is a big deal for us, and if we have some resistant varieties to use, solid stem varieties to use, and what's the impact on yield for that. If you have any questions, always welcome to give me a call or an email, and I guess I'll hang out and answer a question after we're done here too.